Okay. Thought there was gonna be like a fade to black or something like that. All right. For the first time in what was it, 9 years? I have defeated Trails of Cold. Or, well, I defeated Trails of Cold Steel as well, but Trails in the Sky, I have finally conquered, and it has been a journey. Let me tell you. Let me tell you. But I'm happy. I'm happy. I beat it. You know. Um, Spoiler: I'm kind of excited to play the next one. I don't own it yet, so I gotta buy it, which means I gotta wait for a sale. Gotta wait for the sale. But anyways, I wrote some of these thoughts obviously before today, so my I'll anyways. So for overall thoughts, I have a very unique experience with this game. It took me 4 tries to beat, and my reasons for failing to beat it were mostly backtracking related and some slow plot development. I had a hard time returning to the game because I watched a Let's Play to finish what I couldn't. And that's basically more or less why it's taking me so long to actually get into the Trails in the Sky entry, at least for this first one, is, as I mentioned in my intro, played it in 2011, played it in 2015, I played it in 2017 for the stream, and I just couldn't beat it, you know? Various factors kept holding me back. So it feels good to actually finally beat this game. I also think I could have read the dialogue for this game, something I'll likely do for the next. Yeah, I was kind of afraid that this game would be a little crazy with how much text I would have to read, but I don't think it was that bad, actually. I think it was totally manageable. Or at least I want to believe it was, you know. I didn't actually read it, so. Sadly, not much to say about the game overall. Many of my thoughts are past experiences, and trying to write stuff about this experience without influence was hard. As I mentioned, I have 3 other attempts of trying to play this game, and a lot of my feelings about the game are heavily influenced by these like strong feelings of those particular playthroughs. And some things that I'll probably get into in a little bit is like some of those things didn't even have any impact on the game for me for this playthrough, which is kind of crazy. But I guess when I want to give my overall thoughts, I definitely got to say that I enjoyed the game quite a bit. I had a hard time with the start, but it grew on me. So you know, I guess that is the markings for a good game, I suppose. So for the story, was it satisfying? I'm I'm kind of in an awkward spot for this because on one hand, yes. On one hand, yes. You know, I got answers to a lot of questions, and uh, I think from start to finish, you know, things worked out story wise. But on the other hand, it's a Trails game, and you know they always like the plot dumps at the end. At least from my experience with Trails of Cold Steel. So this particular game, having played Trails of Cold Steel 1, 2, and 3 so far, I I know that I don't want to say they're holding back, but there's I feel like there was a lot more that could have been done in this game to push the story a little bit farther. But I guess I mean I would say overall, I think the story was satisfying. The story of 2 kids going on a journey to become bracers. I think that journey was satisfying. The story of learning about Liberl and kind of its inner workings, and those who work in the shadows and those who work for Liberl. I think that's where it faltered for me, because I I want to know more about our bad guys, and I, they they added in information about them, but our bad guys weren't our bad guys. And and that in of itself is fine. But for my own personal taste, for my own personal wants, I always want to know more about the bad guys. The bad guys are my favorite characters. So, or more often than not. So it just kind of sucks for me that I didn't really get to learn much of anything about the bad guys from just this game. Obviously, I know who Ouroboros is, and I know what the Enforcers are, and the Anguisses, and things like that. At least to a degree. Nothing in depth or anything like that. But this game, I think, at least I wish that it played on that fact a little bit more. Did it feel complete? I'm gonna say it does not feel complete. Yeah, I mean it's basically ended on a cliffhanger. We don't know what the Septarian is or what it was meant for. Basically, all we basically the story is a Falcom story. You know, in Trails of Cold Steel and in Trails in the Sky, we get a lot of information about the world and its workings and how people live in it. But we don't really get any narrative when it comes to building a villain, uh, building towards, uh, like an arc or a future until the very last arc of the game. That's when everything just starts to fall in place, per se. And mostly for those reasons, I feel like it doesn't feel complete. A lot of the reasons is it ends on a cliffhanger. Um, but on top of that, it's just do do I really feel like the story caps itself off nicely at this point? And I don't think it does. Which, I mean, again, it's a Falcon game. There's 3 games in the series, so you got to save some stuff for the next one. How was the pacing? I mean, I think I kind of touched on this already. That when it comes to at least the first entries, I haven't played, or I haven't played. I don't know anything about Trails in the Sky the second, but or two or whatever it's called, SC second chapter. I don't know. Um, the the games are very very slow, and they build like the tiniest of morsels throughout the game, and I mean like the tiniest, microscopic. And then at the end, you get your full course meal that you got to eat in 5 minutes. It's honestly, the pacing is awful. if if we if we met if we found out that the colonel was the bad guy around when we were fighting the mayor guy, where we met Chloe. I don't remember the name off the top of my head of the city or the region. But if we found that out then, and then we were working towards building uh, a force to stop him and things like that, that would have been nice. I think we just learned of that stuff too late when we went to Zeiss or Zeiss or Zeiss or whatever it's called. I call it Zeiss. Uh, it was just too late in the game. It's the second to last chapter, and even then, like you don't get any motivations or anything like that. You just get like, oh, they're working together and they must be stopped. You know, come on. Let's see. Lots of pacing killers. For example, when I'm about to do this really awesome arena battle, I definitely don't want to get there early, air quotes, and look around to kill time. It's obnoxious. Let me kill suckers without having to chit chat or, yeah, chit chat up a storm with everyone and their mamas. Uh, that stuff is. I mean, I get why it's there, but for me, it doesn't need to be there. If I'm going to the arena to do some battles, I want to fight some dudes and I want to body some suckers. And when I have to, in between each fight, have 3 pages of dialogue that I got to go through, and then on some instances, we arrive there early, and so I got to run around and talk to a bunch of people and trigger cutscenes. Like, no, just I'm going to the arena. I want to fight some dudes. That's all I want to do. I mean, Estelle and Joshua, they could talk to each other a little bit, be like, all right, we pumped, blah blah blah, let's go do this, and then they go fight. Come on, man. Thoughts on the story? Um, for the most part, the first game has definitely felt like a let me introduce you to Liberl type of game. Not much plot happening throughout the majority of the game. And I pretty much touched on this already. I don't think I really need to go through it that much more, but I mean, basically all the plot happens at the end of the third chapter, and basically chapter 4, more or less at the end of chapter 4 as well. Um, in terms of plot that's not related to the journey of Estelle and Joshua uh, becoming senior bracers, everything else just falls short for me. 14 hours in, game will likely dump all relevant plot at the end. Yes, good me for catching on to that. For writing, I like the writing. Some scenes do overstay their welcome, and some characters are allowed to talk too much, but overall, it was a nice read. I do like the writing quite a bit. I think a lot of characters really, really shine through, and I think a lot of the characters feel unique to one another as well. Uh, as mentioned, some characters do talk too much. I think like all of the bracers, except for maybe Agate, Agate, whatever, however you want to pronounce his name. I say Agate. Um, I think he deserves the dialogue he gets, but a lot of the other ones just like, yo, y'all talking too much, man. Y'all not even important, Come on. Let's see. For characters, Olivier is a wonderful character. He brings a really nice breath of fresh air. I was hoping to learn more about him in this game, which I sadly did not get to witness at all. But he is definitely, most likely, if I had to say it right now, my favorite character in this game. He's kind of witty. He's goofy. He just says the most outlandish things, and he does silly things, and he's just great. He's wonderful. For 16-year-olds, does anyone else think Estelle and Joshua are written too mature? Even with their childish moments, it feels like their personalities and actions are so much more grown than they actually are. Now, I guess knowing what we know about Joshua at the moment, he kind of makes a little bit more sense. But Estelle, yeah, she does a lot of childish things. sure, but the her vocabulary and the way she says things definitely feels like she has experience in the world, has spoken of things, has seen things, and that has influenced the way she talks. And I personally don't get that from her character. So it just seems like she talks, I don't want to say sophisticated, but she just uses words in ways that don't really match her age, or at least my depiction of her age, of how people should talk in Liberl at 16 years old. No, I don't know. I don't know. It's pretty obnoxious to constantly be told how amazing Cassius is. It's too frequent, especially considering we never get to see how amazing he is. Having beaten this game, we've seen Cassius do two things. He he bow staffed something in the beginning when we were at that one tower, and he bow staffed some dude, the colonel, at the end. and, and that is it. And I legit, I am sick and tired of hearing about how awesome Cassius is without seeing how awesome Cassius is. You know, show me a battle between him and some army soldiers or something like that. I know it doesn't quite fit with how the story is told because it's a Joshua and Estelle kind of thing. But like, someone give me a flashback or something. It's so obnoxious. So obnoxious. If Dorothy ain't a bad guy, I'm going to be shocked. Same with Professor Alba. She's too stupid not to be a bad guy, and he's too sketchy and in the right place at the right time too much. Well, I got 50% of that right thus far. There's still plenty of time for Dorothy to be revealed as a bad guy. But yeah, Dorothy, I, I feel like some characters, especially in anime, like they're just really stupid. If we go to Naruto, I'm just gonna say that there's a character in there that's really stupid, and that character is actually not really stupid. And so I feel like Dorothy is just too stupid to not be really smart. If that makes sense. Like, she has to be feigning her stupidity. It just doesn't make any sense any other way. Like, she can't be that dumb. But she can't be that dumb. As far as Professor Alba, I'm actually kind of happy. I did watch a Let's Play to finish this game, and if you saw my save files, the farthest I got was Zeiss. So I watched this Let's Play a long time ago, probably 2011, 2012, maybe 2015, but I doubt it. So I forgot that Professor Alba was actually a thing. Um, so that kind of caught me a little off guard. I did remember a scene. Like, I remember that there's a scene between Joshua and someone else about Joshua and like his information, but I thought it happened on the top of the castle, like where Estelle and Joshua were talking. Oh, he handed her the harmonica or whatever. So that kind of caught me off guard. I was like, man, do I remember anything about this game? But yeah, Professor Alba, he was in the right place at the right time too many times. That guy definitely pegged him for a bad guy pretty early on. Also, he's kind of another one of those guys where it's like, you ain't this dumb, like, if you're this dumb, you're just faking it. And that's what I gleaned off of him. Can I scroll down? Oh my goodness. Let's see. For my gameplay mechanics and design section, some gameplay elements that stood out. 7 hours into the game, it seems like levels play a larger role than I was expecting. Enemies are hitting pretty hard when I'm not doing side quests. Yeah, I'm actually really surprised, but at the same time, I'm not surprised, which I think I might get into a little later. But I'll just say it right now. Side quests don't really do anything other than give you money. So, I mean, obviously there's like random battles and things like that, and Sepith, which you can do to improve your orbit, which gives you MP and things like, or EP and things like that. But I mean, I guess now that I'm thinking about this in hindsight, levels are basically the most important thing in this game. Which I did confirm that your stats do go up. There was one instance where I confirmed that Joshua's stats went up by like 3 or something like that for a level up. So that was cool. That was cool. Let's see. Seems like the best way to get money is to do side quests, which I sadly decided I'd skip out most early on. Um, the side quests I remember being kind of obnoxious, and I'm actually really glad that I didn't do them because a lot of the quests that we did in this game where they didn't really seem important, they were quite verbose. They like to talk, and it's often about the least interesting things, and they don't do a satisfactory job for my personal taste of making them interesting. So just it was just boring stuff that I didn't want to do. So I'm glad for that. Plus, a lot of the issues that I had about this game date back to like backtracking and things like that. And I didn't do hardly any backtracking in this game, which means that all the backtracking, for the most part, is in the side quests. So yeah. Let's see. I'm not really a fan of the constant dropping of party members. I understand this is Estelle and Joshua's journey, but having a more consistent party would be more enjoyable for me. This is just one of my personal tastes. I like having a core group and then going through the game. I think there's too many instances in this game where you don't have 4 people, and I think the game is balanced enough that you don't need 4 people. But I personally just like having a full party at all times, and uh, knowing the arsenal that I have and being able to plan around that. The instance where it was Estelle, Shara, and Chloe against I don't remember his name, Lorenzo. I think it's Lawrence. Like that was a very tough battle for me because I have 3 characters that basically do no damage to the guy, and I mean his fight in of itself, the things that he does is ridiculously obnoxious. Don't get me wrong on that, but like I just have 3 weak characters, and if I had those characters from the start, I would know their ins and outs by that point in the game, and I know, okay, like this character doesn't do any damage, so we're gonna go all out with the arts and things like that. But because I only use Sherazard for, I don't know, like a fourth of the game, and Chloe for a fourth of the game, I go into that fight and I'm just like, okay, well, I know that Chloe is really good at healing, and I know Shara is a decent ranged attacker in the sense of she's not completely melee. So yeah, and they might get new stuff by the time you get them. Come on, man. Personal taste. Let's see. Oh, and then here's this. Having only done a handful of side quests, which essentially only reward money, I feel like I did a decent job keeping up in levels. The only time I opted to do more fighting was the sewers in Gransel because I was afraid of Lawrence. Yeah, so when I was in the sewers, you might have noticed I was fighting every battle, and I'd sometimes go back to fight a little bit, uh, little, little more battles than I probably needed to. And that was because that area gave really good experience. and I also felt that I was pretty low level. I think Zin was like level 30, and I was like 25 or something like that. And whenever games do that, that kind of clues you into you should probably be around this level. So I got a couple of levels there. I didn't have to grind per se, but I just fought every battle on my way to go do things, and it worked out pretty nice. Let's see. Funnily enough, one of the reasons I quit this game from my previous attempts was backtracking, and while there were some of that this time, it seems like it's side quests mostly. Having skipped them, I enjoyed my time more. Yeah, I already went over this. It was great. For combat, a little on the slow side, but the ability to fast forward on PC negates that completely. You saw me fast forwarding so much, like so much, like things like tier or like tier of bombs and things like that. Just really, really slow. So the ability to fast forward on PC is fantastical. Not a fan of characters getting knocked back when hit. It's disruptive and hard to play around. It's also kind of obnoxious now that I've beaten the game. I don't like the grid system in of itself is just kind of weird, but after a while I get used to it. It's just the knockback. It's so I mean, honestly, you really can't plan around it because you never know where they're gonna go because the enemies can move around, wherever which way, more or less. And it's it's just kind of tough. For dungeons, I don't really have anything notable to say about dungeons other than I actually feel, other than the last one, the last dungeon was a little long, but then again, I wasn't fighting any random encounters there. I only did the chest fights. So if I did the random encounters, it would be a really long dungeon. But other than the final dungeon, I would say all the dungeons are pretty well paced in the sense of I don't think they overstayed their welcome all too much. Uh, so there's that. I don't think any of them were inflated by backtracking, uh, practical dungeon design. Eh, I don't think there were any issues with that. The Gransel sewers. I mean, you could make the case there. It's like, what is that switch doing all the way in the middle of nowhere, man, to open up that door? Like, come on. But it could be a secret passageway, so you never know. But sewers in games just rarely make any sense. Come on. Let's see. Cardinal sins. I was thinking about this yesterday, and I don't know if I want a cardinal sin this game or removing key party members without sufficient replacement. Um, I think the game. Well, I think what I could say is the game does commit the cardinal sin, but the game properly balances the game so that it's not punishing. But I'm gonna give that cardinal sin to this game. I'm also gonna give the uh, the escort missions that I actually died once or had to restart once because I think Dorothy died or something like that. Uh, get escort missions out of here, man. None of that. For miscellaneous sound and music, some very solid tracks. I was relatively pleased with the OST. I think there's some really solid tracks on here. Another OST I'm gonna have to listen to. There's no voice acting other than the battle only sound clips, and there's nothing outside of that. So there's that. For the graphics, I really like the visual art style. I think the actual sprites, they're a little, I don't want to say muddy, but they're not very well defined. I guess they kind of blur or blend in to some aspects of each other. So it's not 100% clear what they look like, but this game was a PSP game, and so they look pretty good on PSP. But in 1080p, I could understand, scaling those up is a little tough. Let's see. Replay value. I don't think this game has any replay value whatsoever. You can do, as far as I can tell here, and most, I would say most Tales games kind of do this sort of thing, where you can play the game in nightmare mode, and you can do some other stuff, blah blah blah. But for the most part, there's really no story, no additional story or anything like that to be gained from doing a second playthrough. So once you go through it, I think you got what you need. And I believe you can accomplish everything you need to as well. You can do all the side quests. I don't know if there's hidden side quests in this game. Those two monster extermination quests that I got in Gransel from the sewers, those were the closest things to hidden quests that I saw. Yeah. So I guess there could be, or there are something. And then if the developers are watching, due to having played through Cold Steel 1 through 3 before diving into Trails in the Sky, I'm familiar with the story design, and while I personally wish it was done differently, I enjoyed the game. I touched on this quite a bit. I personally prefer a story to open up towards the beginning, middle to end of chapter 1, we'll say. And then we spend the rest of the game trying to stop the bad guy, learn more about the bad guy. We make some headway here and there. Bad guy makes some headway here and there. We learn their motivations. And at the very end, we get the satisfying, boom, you're done. And maybe, you throw in some cliffhangers and some additional information and things like that. But it's never a complete plot dump at the end. And once again, I do understand that this game is about Estelle and Joshua making their journey to become senior bracers. But there's so much more going on than that. I feel like that story is so small compared to everything else that's going on, which makes a lot of sense because, becoming senior bracers is so insignificant compared to the world ending. So that makes sense, but I just prefer the narrative structure to be more spread out. For the second entry, I'm looking for a nice spread out story. Plot dumps towards the end of the game make most of the experience prior feel meaningless to some extent. Not completely meaningless, but it just kind of sucks where you just don't learn anything until the very end of the game. I mean, yeah, and I've kind of beaten this point to death. So I'd also like to see a consistent cast of party members that stick with you for the entire game. I touched on this as well. It's just a personal preference kind of thing. They could obviously make it work like in this game. I just a preference. But yeah, for overall, I definitely say that I'm quite happy with this game. I'm glad that I beat it, and I'm definitely looking forward to the second entry. Very curious about Joshua. I think I interpreted the text there right, that he's enforcer number 13, which is kind of crazy. The Black Fang. Never learned anything about enforcer number 13 in Trails of Cold Steel, as far as I know. So that's kind of cool. Seems like he's gonna go off and do his own thing, which is gonna make things a little awkward for the second game. I'm wondering if we're gonna be like, I'm playing Estelle, and then 6 hours later, I'm playing Joshua. Or if we're just going to play Estelle. Like, that's one thing that I don't quite know. And I feel like, one thing I don't quite know is this Estelle's game or is it Joshua's game? And I think the second game will let me know. I feel like it's more Estelle's game just because of how when they're separated, we see Estelle by herself and talking to people, and we never really get that with Joshua. But the second game will let me know whose story are we following. You can't have both. I'm telling you now. But yeah, so I think that's basically gonna wrap it up for my overall thoughts and all the thoughts. As I enjoyed the game, had a great time with it. Looking forward to the second entry, and hopefully I won't get so blindsided by the second entry that I'll eventually get around to the third entry as well, and I'll be that much closer to being caught up with the whole Trails or the Legend of Heroes saga or whatever it's called. But that's going to wrap it up for me for today. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. See ya probably tomorrow or the next time I see you. Peace. We're just gonna do this before I peace. Just in case there's like a cutscene. This is looking like a cutscene at the end. All right, never mind. I'm out of here. Peace. Wait, am I? I don't think I've ever seen this. Yeah, there's no opening cinematic. So this is definitely new. That's probably the Black Ornament. Oh yeah, and Cassius going into the military, man. Come on, man. What are you doing? Special characters. Ooh. Oh, that's Lawrence. That was probably Professor Alba. Or Weissman. Gotta call him Weissman now. Okay, that was nice. It was nice. Can I go now? It's burning up. 8.5 hour stream. All right. I'm out of here. Peace.